everyone, Tara back again, and today I am speaking with Catherine Corey. We've previously spoken on a few other topics about being locked down together during the pandemic and relationships during quarantine and all of that fun stuff. And today we are speaking on the topic of loss. So Catherine, thank you so much for joining me again and doing this with us and sharing all of your wisdom. So we're talking loss today. What is your experience with loss?
Well, I would say I have a lifelong experience of loss because it's such a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost relationships through death, divorce, estrangement, illness. And I mean by illness in terms of where an illness, a mental illness, takes the person that you knew away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced loss of pets, either having them given away, moved away from them, or through death. Loss of homes, either by moving or by divorce. Jobs, of course. Loss of health. I have had health challenges and difficulties in the past. Loss of mobility, loss of memory. Had amnesia for a short period of time and still didn't regain all the memories from that particular a loss of lifestyle. So there's all kinds of potentials for loss.
Right.
And definitely people are experiencing a variety of losses during this particular time period.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when people think of loss, they think of like very tangible things of losing, right? Or like the loss of loved ones. So they surround it more so with death. But even in one of the light bulb moments that I had in the last conversation that we had was, like the loss of the coping mechanisms and the loss of the activities that we enjoyed to do. Even the loss of the idea of the way things were supposed to go or were supposed to play out over the next few months, right? So all of that kind of, when it comes to the COVID-19 situation, is floating around with people.
Absolutely. Loss of money, loss of time, loss of connections, loss of social opportunities. Oh my goodness. Enormous amounts. Yes.
Yeah. So what are the common difficulties or issues that you notice in your, in your personal life or with your work that you do?
Well, some of the common themes that I've noticed are being stuck in it. Like stuck in the feelings of loss, stuck in the story of loss, having a real difficult and challenging time coming out of it.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, when we're stuck in loss, because loss or the energy of sadness is one that brings us more into ourselves. So when we're in that state of loss, it actually even makes it more difficult for us to connect with others.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The other is trying to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I had conversations because of the tragedy in Nova Scotia about making sense of why somebody would do something. Why would somebody create such a place of loss, basically? So to try to make sense of why, the meaning of why am I experiencing this loss? There are some questions even about the COVID-19. Why is this happening? Is it really happening? It doesn't make sense to me, right? Because it's not firsthand. It's that they're telling me this is happening. Why am I losing so much with something that I don't really even recognize, or getting stuck in the story of it, being obsessed with all the details or information around it?
Yeah. So because I can completely relate to that feeling of feeling lost, the sadness, and how the more you circulate the sadness, the more you go into it, or the more you give into it, in the sense of letting it like weigh you down or sucking you in. And so how can people get themselves, if they are feeling in that way, move out of that?
Well, part of it is understanding that thoughts, feelings, and beliefs are all connected, right? So if I'm stuck in a feeling, then I need to use thoughts or beliefs to help me move out of it. And so one of the things as human beings is we have an imagination,
Mm-hmm.
right? So part of the thing is that when we're stuck in a feeling, we're telling ourselves a story that supports that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's telling ourselves another story.
Right.
Or imagining another circumstance, imagining something different to learn how to shift from one place to another.
Right.
Right? So I would say, because we're a feeling creature, once you learn how to move in and out, then it's scheduling. It's like determining, you know what? Yes, that feeling is there, because feelings are present in all situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to move fluidly from one to another and change the story so I can move the feeling, but I also want to honor it, right? Because
Right.
oftentimes we're running away from our feelings. So for me, it's like making specific times and places and scheduling it.
Okay.
But I'll get into a few more of those tips, because the other things that I want to talk about, there's a few more little issues. And one of the reasons why we have a problem with loss is sometimes also that we regret the things that we said or did,
Yeah.
or that we didn't say or didn't do,
Right.
right? The other thing that is often quite common is that it gets added to our past losses. So we have a whole loss file or a loss agenda with these huge feelings. And that also makes it challenging, when I'm saying, is to get stuck in it.
Yeah.
Because you get in there and it's like there's an ocean of this.
Yeah.
I remember describing to some people, because I've experienced so much, that I used to believe that I lived at the bottom of the ocean of tears, the tears that I didn't spend or whatever, but it was an ocean of them. And I was always afraid to go there because I wasn't sure that I'd ever find my way to the surface.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. So sometimes if you haven't been able to process it through and you end up being stuck in them, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly how it feels. I'm going to be lost there. It's going to be because at the bottom of the ocean, it's dark. I'm never going to be able to find my way to the surface. Nobody's going to know that I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, kind of drowning in it. And the other couple of things is triggers.
Yeah.
So not having any control over when you're going into this, I always say, this ocean of tears. Like when you're going into the sadness, not having any control over it. So that often is an issue or a challenge. And the last one for me, it's not the last one, but the other one that one would talk about is that we have a lack of ritual around it.
Mm-hmm.
Where we used to ritualize a lot of these things in terms of understanding that when we've experienced the loss, we actually are experiencing a transition into something else, right? And we need to have some kind of an understanding that there's a passage from one way of being to another. So as soon as you've acknowledged or recognized a loss,
Mm-hmm.
your world has changed.
Right.
Right? And we're very symbolic as human beings, and we need to actually note for ourselves that we're moving into something new.
Right. Okay. And so how do we do all of that?
Well, that's what I said. It's a large topic, and
Yeah.
it really depends on which particular losses that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
But there's a few tips I have. So, and I would say that if you're feeling really lost, like I said, that being at the bottom of the ocean, can't find your way out, huge numbers of things, it is really important to get help around them, because
Okay.
you can't. I mean, the very nature of loss and the sadness and bringing that search inside is, if you don't have the tools or the knowledge of yourself, you
Yeah.
really need to have support around it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why you would look for help and
Yeah.
assistance to hold the space for you to find yourself in that. Bring you
Yeah.
to the surface. Make sure that you're coming to the surface. You're okay. You can move out of it.
Right.
So there's a couple of things that I'll go into in terms of tips. One is to remove triggers.
Okay.
Right? Because there's a thing about wanting to be in control of things, so you remove as many triggers as possible.
Okay.
Schedule the time to actually move into the feeling with tools to move you out. So then you would use your imagination to move you from one feeling to another.
Okay.
Right? So if I said to you, like even in this moment, if you imagine the saddest time in your life and you move into that feeling, okay, just for a sec. And then I'm going to ask you to imagine a really, really happy time.
Okay.
Okay. And as much as you can, use all your senses. If you can visualize it, if you could feel it, was it a warm day? Was it a sunny day? Are you outside? Are you inside? Breathe into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you breathe into your very happy moment, right, you start to shift out.
Right.
Right? The more you allow yourself into your happy, joyful, and out of the sad one, right? And you practice that moving back and forth, then you know that you're actually, by what you're thinking, right, what you're imagining, you can shift what it is that you're feeling.
Right.
Right?
So that would be just to clarify, so that would be like a tool to use when you feel like you're stuck in that sadness.
Yeah, when you're stuck in it, but it's also one to practice anyway, because the more we believe that we can shift our feelings,
right,
that we're in control of them, the easier it is.
Right. That makes sense.
Right? Because many of us came by the belief that we don't have control over these.
Yeah.
Right? So the only control we have is hiding them or masking them. Right? Or expressing them when nobody else is around, or exploding.
Yeah.
Which is out of control. Right? So if you have that kind of belief about your own emotional makeup, it makes it really difficult. Whereas if you turn around and you go, hang on a sec, right? Because in my training in psychodrama, you could take any scene, right? And as an actor in it, you could play it angry, you could play it sad, you could play it scared, you could play it happy.
Right.
Right? So in our human, depending upon what we focus on and what story we're telling ourselves, we can change how it is that we're feeling.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? So it's like I said before, like we have a tendency to be focused on negative.
Yeah.
So we have to train ourselves to see the positive.
Right.
And then practice, right? It's not denying that there's negative. It's practice. Where do I want to express from? You know, where do I want to, where do I want to take actions from? Do I want to take actions from being negative, or do I want to take actions from being positive?
Right.
Right? So it is that. So you want to acknowledge that you have the loss. You want to acknowledge that you have the sadness. You don't want to run away from it, but you want to have it more controlled.
Right.
Here's where I'm going to express it. Here's where I'm going to feel it. This is where I'm going to take it.
Right.
Right?
Thanks.
So that you can place, and I said, because oftentimes what you want to be is you want to be in a safe environment when you're feeling your sadness.
Yeah.
It's very challenging to feel it outside in the world because we have a natural tendency to want to protect ourselves. So we're kind of split ourselves. I'm sad here, but I can't, take care of myself out here.
Yeah.
Right? I remember one experience shortly after was a relationship separation, and I was hugely feeling the loss, and I needed to go out to the store, and I could never understand why when I was in the store people would bump into me and bang into me, right? Because I wasn't really being present in that experience. And so I ended up, because I wasn't really claiming my space or being able to protect myself, I got hurt every time I went out. And I'm going, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Not at all. But it's that push. I was in so much grief, couldn't really attend to my surroundings or what it was that I was doing. So I really, say to people, that's why you want to have a safe space in your home to feel that loss, and also a way to pull yourself out of it.
Right. Right. So the other tip was to remove triggers.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, I can give you an example. As hard as it is, and I'll probably choke up a little bit. I lost my dog of 12 years last week. And so what I did, because I knew I don't want to be triggered all the time, and there's a ton of things. You can imagine there's a ton of things around the place.
In your home. Yeah.
That, yes, like leashes, dog kibble, food, clippers, even dog hair, right?
Yeah.
All over the place. I mean, it was challenging the first 24 hours, but my first task was to remove as much of that as possible. And again, I mean, from a feeling, I didn't remove everything, but I removed most of it.
Right.
I did leave, I had made a stand-up dog bowl, and I tried removing it, but it didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
So I left it there because I thought, yep, for me, that's the thing that when I'm looking at it, I'm going to allow myself to feel the loss.
Right.
So that hugely was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I suggest in terms of tips is, because he was very much a part of my daily routine, is to actually change the routine. So one of the things that I love to do is I love to walk. But it was very difficult and challenging, and I did try it the first day or so, because it's that kind of thing where it's that mix where, you know, I'm feeling it and I allow myself to feel the loss, but, you know, frankly, it's outside. That's not really a good thing. So what am I going to do with this? And I decided that I was going to put headphones in and listen to music, which is not something that I usually do, but I needed to change up the routine.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be something new and different and change. And so that's what I did. I put headphones in and dance music on. And so I move differently. I take a different route. I walk a little bit longer and I have music. So it's like changing up the routine around that as well. So that's in terms of dealing with triggers. Also changing your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's changing. So if you walk into the same room, then you're thinking the same things.
Right.
So you change the environment, change the story, do something different as part of that kind of thing, as the ritual of this is a new chapter, right?
Right.
So physically we need to do it in order to support the emotional change the story, change the scene, change, right? Change the role, change something about it. Change how I express it. The other thing is to actually name the qualities or the characteristics of the loss.
Right.
Right? So we said it a little bit about our coping mechanism. What did it actually do? What did it bring to you? What did it represent? So if I said the same thing with my dog, he was in charge of routine. I'll tell you, you know, he was demanding about when he would get fed and when he would get walked. And so there was a sequence of routine. So I knew he was routine for me. He also brought in the spontaneity, the quirky behaviors, the little bits of a laugh, or the little, you know, even in the terms of the negativity, the little frustrations that end up being funny, like just that was just the way it was. He brought in unconditional love. And so for me, it was like unconditionally caring for me is something that I need to do. So those things that I saw are qualities that I certainly identify with my dog, I need to then bring back to me. How am I going to own it? How am I going to express it? How am I going to honor it?
Right. Right. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of how that could apply to other situations. So I mean, yeah, so I guess that would make sense. So if you're feeling the loss of something or someone, is identifying in that what it is that it brought to you or made you feel like, or whatever the case might be, and then strategizing how you can bring that into your life.
Yes.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
And it's and again, it's not saying, and I always say this, I mean, forever. Well, you know, that was lost. Forever, there's part of me that's going to be sad that I don't have the company of my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am going to, again, it's like that was a chapter. I am going to support myself in moving to a life that he's not in.
Right.
Not in that way. I can imagine him, well, because that's certainly there.
Right.
Right. I have the memories. I have the shared memories with other people.
Right. Right. So, yeah. So moving from a different perspective in a different place when you're struggling with that loss and being sad and all of those things. So trying not to sit in it and just saying, well, I'm just sad, so I'm just gonna like lay in bed for the rest of the quarantine or whatever the case might be, and taking that tendency and shifting it to something different. So looking at the triggers that cause you to feel that sadness, or where the sadness is coming from, what loss it's coming from, and how you can bring that to your life, and practice moving in and out of it, and using the visualization of the happiest time in your life to move your feelings.
Yes. And again, I mean, because if you're looking at loss and bringing that connection to you, I said the positive of it is that each of our losses give us an opportunity to know ourselves better, to
Right.
connect and love ourselves even more, to feel really less alone, less lonely, because we
Right.
know ourselves, more connected to ourselves. You know, having more compassion, more humor or lightness. So it's an opportunity to really deeply connect with ourselves.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, though, we need a little assistance with that, because I mean, we're human and we're relational, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult. I would say to people, it's very difficult to see ourselves. Even
Yeah.
if we look in the mirror, it's difficult for us to see ourselves because we have often taken on how other people have seen us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, well, you've given us a lot of information today and some really great tips that people can actually implement in their homes today with everything that is going on, because I know that all of us in some way, shape, or form are dealing with, some form of loss.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I just wanted to thank you. And just so that we know, we didn't do this on the last video, but I wanted to make sure we did it. You're still seeing clients and everything, right? Virtually?
I certainly am.
Okay. So when I post the videos and stuff, you're going to be tagged in them, and people can always just contact the center as well to get in touch with you and
Absolutely.
that fun. Do you also want to just maybe give your email in case anybody wants to send you an email?
Yes, they can reach me at Catherine@spiritwalk. That's SPIRITWALK.ca.
Perfect. Thank you again so much for doing this with me, and I'm sure we will find other topics to chat about soon.
For sure. Take care.